And it hit me like a ton of bricks, Jordan. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be 30 years from now talking about you saw my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that was because I was limiting myself because I thought this is what, Shamar was the big star and I was going to be the guy that wipes the glasses in the background. And that's okay. I can make $75 a day doing this.
Yeah.
And I limited myself. I put the brakes on myself for up to that point. And man, I had an audition, I think on a Tuesday or whatever it was. And I was meant to be at Young and the Restless at 7 a.m. And I called Marnie on Monday afternoon. I said, listen, I don't think I can make it tomorrow. I have an audition. She goes, well, you're booked. You have to be here tomorrow. I was like, no, but I've got this. I really want to go to this audition. She goes, well, you have to make a decision, sweetheart, because it's between this is a job and that's probably something that's not going to happen anyway. And I was like, oh, wow. So she goes, you're probably, you're not going to get the job anyway. This is a gig. If you don't show up, don't bother to come back.
Wow.
And
line in the sand.
A line in the sand. And you know what? I drew the line. I went to the audition. You know what?
I actually do know what happened. That was a little excerpt from the interview you're about to listen to with actor Michael Trucco. I'm Jordan Murphy, and you're listening to Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. On this show, I talk to friends, family, colleagues, you name it, about the shared experience we all have with breakdowns and breakthroughs, how they happen, when they happen, and how we navigate through them to ultimately find success in our lives. I really believe that people who are up to big things in their lives are going to experience breakdowns and breakthroughs. They're not always pleasant, but they do help us to grow and to have success in our lives. I don't know about you guys, but when I am in a situation where I'm in a group setting or with friends and someone is sharing authentically, the chances are that I'm going to walk away with some value. It may be a word, it may be a statement, it may be the whole sharing conversation. So my feeling was, why not share other people's experiences of that with the intention of the people listening to walk away with some value? So today I'm joined with a really great guest. His name is Michael Trucco. To his friends, it's Michael Trucco, or to his really good friends, it's Eddie Michael Trucco. Actually, I still call him Trucco. We go way back. And if you don't know who Michael Trucco is, then you haven't been watching TV. He is probably, I'm going to introduce him in a second. He can talk for himself, but basically, you can find all of his credits online, but you might know him from being a regular on Battlestar Galactica, recently on Netflix's Disjointed with Kathy Bates, and the man's done a lot of work. He is the poster child for a working actor, right? So, Michael, how's it going? You know what, Michael? I'm going to call you Trucco.
Please do.
That's what I call you, Trucco, because I can't get used to Michael.
Everybody calls me Trucco. Good friend of mine, Kyle, he's got 3 boys all under the age of 8. They all call me Trucco. His wife calls Trucco's on the phone. Everybody calls me Trucco, so it's just easier that way. There's way too many Michaels.
It is. But you have to introduce yourself now as Michael.
I do. It's weird when somebody says Eddie or Ed or Edward. That's my dad.
Right.
Because
LT.
it's been so long. Yeah.
LT.
I think I've been Michael Trucco longer than I was Eddie Trucco.
Right. At this point, I guess you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I go back to
1990.
1990. That's when we were roommates in college.
Yep.
We have plenty of material to blackmail each other with.
Yep. Yes.
So we started in theater together, and obviously ultimately moved down to Los Angeles together.
Right.
And
at Santa Clara University.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos. And I think we're actually among the few who are still pursuing acting, at least in LA.
I think so.
Right. From the same year or few years around us.
I think so. I want to say Mike Romo is here in LA.
Yes, that's right.
And he just had a major national commercial.
Oh, good.
A big Ford commercial.
Oh, right.
And who else did I run into? Well, there's this guy called Shamar Moore.
Oh, I think he's going places.
Yeah, he has this little role in a little thing called SWAT. Perhaps you heard of Criminal Minds, Young and the Restless.
Right. He's doing okay.
Do you remember Shamar used to come to our apartment?
Oh, yeah.
You, me, and Rick.
Oh, yeah.
And would ask us what a monologue was.
That's right. I know.
We wanted to actually know what the term monologue meant, what a scene study was, all that stuff.
And now I'm trying to get him to give me a job
Unbelievable.
on SWAT.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How the worm turns.
Yeah.
All right. So I invited you here today because we were talking at lunch the other day, and I was sharing with you a little bit about what this show is about.
Right.
Breakthroughs. The fact that we all have them. We all have breakdowns tending to come before those breakthroughs.
Right.
And, I wanted to have people on the show, friends, colleagues, family members, whoever's interested in talking about it, because I think everybody has a story. We all have milestones, turning points in our lives that define ultimately who we are and the success we have in our lives. So I know you have plenty of great stories, but I wanted to hear something juicy, something that maybe I haven't even heard before. Is there something there?
Oh man, it really depends on how far back you want to go. In what regards we want to refer to as a breakthrough, if we're talking about a career, if we're talking about personal life,
I guess
financially.
something that made you, if you looked back on it, you would say, wow, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. If I had gone this direction instead of that, I wouldn't be standing here right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, it's so funny because my mind is awash with so many different ideas and different, events. What I think about, like for me, a pivotal moment for me, both in my life and especially my career, was when I made the conscious decision to move to Los Angeles.
Right.
And that was one that was a little bit, I might say, motivated by you, because I came to visit you first.
Right.
You had made the move to Los Angeles. You among the friends that we talked about at Santa Clara who were saying, we're going to make a pursuit of this career. I think you were among the forerunners, and I came down to visit you
in 94.
January, right? During the earthquake.
Right.
Yeah, I was in your apartment during the earthquake.
You nearly died that day.
Yes, I had a speaker land on my head from the top of your arm. Yeah.
When speakers were like 80 pounds?
Yes, exactly. And they were attached to those little thin speaker wires, and we were listening to Pearl Jam, and it was like 4:00 in the morning, and we'd been to the Viper Room that night.
Yeah.
And anyway, I digress.
Yes.
That's when I came down to visit you, and I kind of got the sensation of how to do this. And you sort of laid the groundwork that it could be done. You could get an apartment. You could cut the umbilical cord from the Bay Area where I was living.
Right.
And dive headfirst into an industry that I felt like I was completely unprepared for. Coming out of theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one thing I regret about theater. I had not a clue about the film or television industry.
I've thought about that since we graduated, and I always thought that it was a shame that there was never a class in college for the business of the business.
That's right.
Like getting headshots.
Yeah.
Finding an agent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How about get a job so that you're not starving?
Yeah.
Right. Those things.
We had something called the Working Actors Guide. Do you remember that down here in LA? The WAG?
Wow.
It was it
paper?
And it was plastic, bound. It looked like a phone book, but it had the wire plastic bound like a binder.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and that shit had, phone numbers. There was no such thing as there were no email addresses and no .coms back then.
There was no Wi-Fi. There was no World Wide Web.
You looked up photographers, you looked up agents, you looked up studios, everything in the Working Actors Guide.
And you licked a stamp and posted an envelope.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The old days.
Yeah, man, we do sound old. I will say that. So, I think if you were going to say if there was a turning point, the obvious one was the decision to come down here.
Were you confronted by, I guess what I'm wondering is, before you came down, what did you stop from coming down? Or, did you think, I can't do this, or have doubts about it?
Yeah. The short answer is fear, which is limiting in every aspect. The fear of failure. The fear of not being good enough. I had an experience in college that you and I touched on with you at lunch the other day.
Yeah.
That I never really told you. And it was, I mentioned it to you, and I lived with you and Rick at the time, and we were in a theater program, a relatively small theater program. And, I never got a lead role.
Right.
It sounds like the poor, I'm weeping in the corner, but it really hit me that through my time in the theater at Santa Clara, I was always kind of playing the fringe characters, and I was always on the outside, and I was always the guy in the back, and I was holding a spear or a gun, and they would throw me a couple lines here and there, and that really messed with my confidence going forward in this business, is that I had this inferiority complex, and I had what I had done, and I realized, and you want to talk about my breakthrough, I'll tell you, I had put parameters on my abilities and what I was capable of achieving. So when I came to Los Angeles and I went through something, going way back, the Drumalogue.
Yeah.
And Backstage West.
Yep.
Had listings for plays.
Yeah.
Union, non-union plays. But that's all I knew. Like I said, we came from the theater. Theater's what I knew.
Right.
And there was a listing for a play called A Few Good Men. And A Few Good Men, of course, is the movie made famous by, Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, but it's an Aaron Sorkin play first, and they made the play into a film. But at the time, that play was very popular, and I set my sights just about for the part of, like, Lieutenant Kendrick. That was about as high as that I was going to think, because when I saw this breakdown...
A supporting character.
A supporting character. There wasn't even an inkling of an idea that I could be reading or be considered for the lead character of Kaffee. And I went down to that audition in Hermosa Beach. Man, that was a long drive.
I remember seeing that show.
Yeah. And I went there and signed in to audition, and it said, what part, and request your part. And I put Lieutenant Kendrick or one of the defendants. I don't even remember what it was. And I started reading, and the director said, would you pick up the sides for Kaffee and read for Kaffee? I was like, no, that's, not, And I had this hesitation because I just didn't think that I was qualified for that and entitled enough. Even if that's maybe not the right word, but
worthy.
Worthy. Yeah, I just didn't think I was worthy.
Yeah.
And I realize now that this is going back into my early 20s, that I put those kinds of limitations on myself for many years prior to coming down here.
Isn't that crazy what we do to ourselves?
Buddy, and it really stuck with me, because the short version of this boring story is that I got cast in the role of Kaffee, the Tom Cruise character in this show.
Yeah.
And it was this revelation that, I can do this. And not just from the outside, people said, you can do this. I thought for the first time, I can do this.
Right.
Maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
And then I started replaying my whole life in reverse. Why was I always settling? Why was I always putting myself up for just the middle ground? I don't know where that comes from, man. That was...
You're still not sure where that seed was planted.
I don't know where that seed is planted. There's something. Yeah.
Whatever it is doesn't seem to be holding you back anymore.
No, because and then these things go in stages, and then of course, from that playing this character in a non-union theater in Hermosa Beach, California, there was a note at the box office that a manager wanted to talk to me, a guy named Dennis Brody. And he had a management company in Beverly Hills. And I was really skeptical, because my dad said, you go down to L.A., people are going to try to take advantage of you. You watch out, man. People are always trying to hustle you. And so I had this really defensive mode. I don't know. I just had this really defensive mode in general. And I always believed that this, I was from San Mateo, California. This stuff didn't happen to people from San Mateo. It happened to people from L.A. and New York, and people didn't walk up to you in a cafe and do the proverbial, movie frame thing with their fingers and go, hey, man, you want a 3-picture deal with Scorsese? That just didn't happen. So I was very skeptical. I was skeptical of this manager calling me, and this guy says, hey, somebody tells me I should get in touch with you. And I said, oh, I don't know, okay. And so he says, I'm going to come down and see your play. And this guy came to see the play, and then, one thing led to another. He becomes my representation, and suddenly I'm finding myself auditioning for roles on legitimate television. I'm coming out of non-union theater and looking for roles on television. Right. But again, I just kind of set that bar really low for myself. And I don't know if that's because helps mitigate the disappointment. Is that a defense mechanism that we use to say that, if you just shoot here and they're like, well, I knew it. I was never going to get the lead anyway. So I'm much better off down here. And, they throw me a couple lines here and there. And it's something that stuck with me for a long time. I mentioned Shamar Moore earlier. Shamar had busted out like crazy in at least our circles as a theater actor. He got on Young and the Restless.
Huge.
And he was a massive name on Young and the Restless.
Yeah.
So I stayed in touch with Shamar. He came down here. We're like, hey, buddy, congratulations. We just spent 4 years in theater, but good for you for being a baseball player.
And being ridiculously good looking.
Unbelievably good looking. And, incredibly talented. I mean, he has such a great charm and a great charisma. So he gets this role, and he goes, hey, man, come down to the set, check it out. I go down, I visit him on set, and they throw me to the background extras casting director. And she goes, we can hook you up. And Shamar says, hook up my buddy, get him on the show. So I ended up...
was it Marnie?
It was Marnie. Exactly right. Excuse me. And I was playing a bartender.
Yes.
In the bar at Young and the Restless, whatever their town was called.
Right.
And every so often, Shamar would throw me a line. He's like, yo, can I get a bottle of champagne, Eddie? And you say my name like really loud. And I was like, yeah, man, sure. And then the stage manager would go, cut. You can't talk. You, right there now, look at me. I was like, what? He goes, you can't talk. And also the phone ring. He goes, hold on. Okay, they're calling from upstairs. They're keeping the line. Today's your lucky day. You just got an upgrade. So I would get like my $75 bump for Shamar throwing me a line.
That's great.
And I would go to this job, and it would be 7:00. Call, bring black shoes, black shirt, black pants and a white shirt, bartender stuff.
Yeah.
And I was the same thing every day. And I'd go to this thing and do the grind and play the bartender and wipe the glasses, and just mime and not talk. And I was in that waiting room one day, and I saw all these guys, and I'm looking around, and I'm in my 20s at this point, and I saw guys 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're all jawing and telling stories. We're on a break, and they're talking about being a seat filler at the daytime Emmys, or they're saying how you could see their shoulder in an episode of Roseanne during the dance sequence. Oh, my shoulder got on camera, and I was like, what am I doing? And it hit me like a ton of bricks, Jordan. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be 30 years from now talking about you saw my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that was because I was limiting myself, because I thought this is what, Shamar was the big star, and I was going to be the guy that wipes the glasses in the background. And that's okay. I can make $75 a day doing this.
Yeah.
And I limited myself. I put the brakes on myself for up to that point. And man, I had an audition, I think on a Tuesday or whatever it was. And I was meant to be at Young and the Restless at 7 a.m. And I called Marnie on Monday afternoon. I said, listen, I don't think I can make it tomorrow. I have an audition. She goes, well, you're booked. You have to be here tomorrow. I was like, no, but I've got this. I really want to go to this audition. She goes, well, you have to make a decision, sweetheart, because it's between this is a job, and that's probably something that's not going to happen anyway. And I was like, oh, wow. So she goes, you're probably, you're not going to get the job anyway. This is a gig. If you don't show up, don't bother to come back.
Wow.
And
line in the sand.
A line in the sand. And you know what? I drew the line. I went to the audition. You know what? I didn't get that job.
You did not book it?
She was right.
Oh, man.
I was right.
I was waiting for the really
I know. No, there it is. I did not get that job. Marnie was right. And I also got fired from Young and the Restless. But that was a pivotal moment for me to go, I'm going to jump into the deep end of a cold pool.
Yes. You made a choice, man.
I was going to jump into the deep end of a cold pool, because instead of sticking my toe and going, that's really not for me, I said, forget about it. I'm going. This is what I want to do. You have to take the risk.
You got it.
That one didn't pay off, and maybe the next one didn't pay off, maybe the next one. But then all of a sudden, I did get that gig, and that one did lead to a speaking role on a Saturday morning TV show, Peter Engel on NBC. And then this little tiny snowflake started building into a snowball. I didn't have this explosive moment where like, hey, you're going to be a star. I just started getting little gigs, and it started from me deciding to want more and be good enough to get more. Yeah.
No, I mean, it really is, man. You made a conscious choice, and you declared it somehow inside. You may not have done it out loud, but through your actions, you said to the universe, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to play full out because I'm worth it. I'm good enough. Whatever the conversation you had to change, you changed it. And like you said, you know what? It didn't happen overnight. I always kind of think about it like a big, like the Titanic, or like a semi, or a large locomotive. Mm-hmm. They don't turn on a dime. Mm-hmm. When you change course, it takes time for those large vessels to change course.
That's a great analogy.
You made a choice, and gradually, you found where you are standing today with over 70 credits to your name.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. You don't see the end game while you're in it.
You can't.
Each one of those was, at one point, it was 3 credits. And then one day it was 13 credits.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the jump. And somebody said that the other day. They go, look at your IMDb. I think you have 78 credits. I do?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I know. I actually checked it out today. I was like, what?
I don't remember that.
I think my recollection. Now, so let me think about this for a second. So one of the breakthroughs for you was stepping out of your comfort zone, moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah, big time.
Kind of like walking through your fear, right? You get to Los Angeles. Second one was overcoming that internal dialogue of I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy to reach for the stars.
It's just mediocrity. Yeah, just accepting mediocrity. And I don't mean that it was mediocre, but just middle ground.
Yeah. But somewhere in the past,
that's your place.
Somewhere in the past, you made up a story that said, that's where I belong. But thank God, somehow, and I'm wondering what it was. What was it? Was it getting that acknowledgement with Kathy? Kathy?
Yeah, Kathy. Lieutenant Kathy.
Was it an acknowledgement from the external world that said, keep it up, kid? Was it the manager? What was it?
I had a few, I told a story the other day. I did an interview, and I used the analogy of, little breadcrumbs were dropped for me on my path. Mm-hmm. And like a bird, I'd pick them up and go, okay, this was enough to keep me going in the right direction. And, I know we're jumbling all over the place chronologically. Yeah. But there was a moment at Santa Clara University in the theater department when the head of the theater department at the time, Yagenka, we all know and love, remember Yagenka, I was going there to audition for a play as a non-major. I was not a theater major yet. My first quarter of freshman year, I was a criminal justice major. My dad was a cop. I was going to be a cop.
Right.
And I went to go audition for a play, and she said, I'm not going to cast you in this play. She goes, I did a monologue. She goes, great. It was that same thing. Like, didn't get the job. She's like, that was great. You're not going to get cast. And I was like, oh, wow.
Huh.
That was, thank you for that. She goes, understand that this is a play with 6 characters, 3 men, 3 women. I have theater majors in the department. They get priority. But I want you to come and take a class called Acting for Non-Majors.
Right. I remember that.
So she threw that at me. You know, it was an elective. You get a couple of credits, and it didn't really hurt my course. And I was like, all right. Upon completion of that course, the final exam, you know, how do you grade acting class? So it was just about participation and enthusiasm. And then you have a little interview with her in her office. And she said, I got an A or whatever it was. She says, I think you may like, you may like.
I think we may like to come and act more.
She said, maybe you come and study with the department and change your major. So that was the external acknowledgement that I think I was seeking.
A nudge.
That somebody, I was like, you want me to come and she's, you know, are you pulling my leg? Or so I had that encouragement. That was another breadcrumb that got me into the theater department.
But you kind of keep on alluding to this kind of the suspicion that you have.
Yes.
You're suspicious of people.
Yes.
Skepticism. Where did that get planted? I want to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Not that we will. I'm just curious.
No, I'm actually glad you're asking because these are really important questions and it does go to one's, you know, psyche and one's history.
And patterns.
For sure.
We repeat these things over and over and over again. I mean, somehow, thank God, whether it's your own practice of acting classes or journaling like you've talked about, or you know, I'm like, you've obviously planted certain things that you practice that have combated that conversation or systematically disappeared that conversation or dissolved that neurosynapse that was, you know, kind of wired together that said, I'm not good enough or I'm not, whatever it was. You've somehow dissolved it, which kudos.
But it's a work in progress. I think that it lingers somewhere deep in the recesses of my psyche, somewhere down in those you know, those dark corridors of my brain. I fight it to this day. And then the louder voices, no, bullshit, you are good enough. You can do this. I can, you know, there's a confidence that comes with, I can lead a network television series. I absolutely know. Whereas before it's like, well, if I could just get on the show and just be the guy and maybe hopefully get 7 out of 13 episodes and kind of go here, as opposed to, no, I could do a show called Castle and be Castle. Like, I can, I'm ready mentally, physically, emotionally in my life for that kind of thing. Whereas I used to not be. And
that's a big distinction though. I think you believed it. Yeah. Many people just don't believe it's possible.
That's the thing.
So it's not going to be possible.
Exactly. If you don't believe it, if you can't manifest it, then forget about it. It'll never come to you. So I struggle with it, every day, not every day, but I mean, to this day, it's not like it just magically erased, but I'm much more aware of it. And it's in the language that I use, both in my internal voice and my external voice. You're just talking about it right now. It's weird. I know you have an audience that listen to this. It's it's weird to say to people, oh, I'm good enough to lead a television show. It sounds strange coming out of my mouth because I'm always cautious of the arrogance of statements like that. And I don't mean it in that way at all.
No.
I just mean that I'm confident enough and worthy enough to do it. Now, whether that happens and whether I'm fortunate enough to have, a title character in a title show, those are forces that are outside my control.
Completely.
But I'm ready for them. I'm ready for my Magnum PI. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I can do it.
I hear you. And honestly, it is not a conversation about ego. It's not a conversation about arrogance. Right. You're saying it from an internal space that is authentically expressing your true nature. Right. I believe that. Now, if you're saying it, I don't know, how do you explain it? It's like, it's not cocky. You're not sounding cocky. You actually have the proof. You actually can say, yeah, I've done this. Yeah, I can do this. And if that's what is necessary to get you in there and crush those auditions and close those network meetings, then great.
So be it.
Do whatever you need to do. And like you said, those conversations are going to come up. Those disempowering little conversations, those limiting conversations are going to come up. The question is, are you aware of them? Do you stop them?
Yeah.
And do you reinsert something new that's empowering, right? Like what you said, I am good enough. I am strong enough. I'm ready for this. It feels a lot better right?
Yes, exactly.
To share and express and to dwell in that reality than it is, I'm not really that good. I'm not,
That's exactly
I'm not that good. So, but it's a practice.
Yeah. It's about changing your state.
Yep.
You know this. Look, I'm not making a plug, but yeah, Tony Robbins, change your state. And I love some of his examples are fantastic. Like your physical state. Do you know it's impossible to be depressed if you throw your shoulders back, you pick your chin up and you look forward?
That's right.
Look up at this when you walk.
That's right.
But if you roll your shoulders forward, you put your head down, your eyes are gazing at the floor and you talk really low, you're going to be depressed.
That's right.
Your physical state can change your emotional and mental state.
Absolutely.
And man, I learned this stuff and I was like, it's so obvious. Of course. But as soon as you read it in print, and then you practice it.
Big distinction. You got to practice it.
You have to practice it. And I actually physically would do that sometimes. I'd throw my shoulders back and I was like, son of a bitch is right. This does feel good. And you look at somebody in the street, go, hi. And they go, hi. And you're like, all right. Like suddenly you have this amazing energy.
Well, it's actually interesting you say that because there's also something else to be said about the fact that our brain can't think of or dwell on more than one thing at a time.
That's right.
So you can't think sad, horrible, hateful thoughts while you're thinking about love and power and generosity.
Exactly.
If you dwell in that and literally bathe in those ideas of I am powerful, I am committed, I am driven, I am enough, you cannot think the opposite.
That's right.
Until you stop generating the powerful.
That's right. And I know it sounds so easy and it sounds funny. I think when, I've reached a certain modicum of success in my career and so I can tell these stories and people go, yeah, well, you have 78 credits and it's easy for you to say, but, it doesn't mean that, this doesn't just automatically erase failure.
No.
Or downtimes.
Or desire to move to the next level.
That's the thing. It's like I'm never quite, I don't think I've achieved a certain modicum of success in my career, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, you and I talked about this the other day, actually, which was really eye-opening to me, which is you had said that you had written in your journal years ago, I'm going to have this, and this, like a series regular, a house in the hills, a house with a view, all these very distinct, specific elements. You wrote them down in your journal. And one day, you're sitting there talking to your mom on the telephone, looking out from your beautiful home, having worked on over 75 television shows, having achieved essentially what you created.
That's right.
And now going, now what?
That's right.
Now what?
I reached a plateau.
A plateau on your hillside.
A good plateau, but one that I realized, oh, wow, I've set these goals down on paper, in pencil and paper in a journal somewhere 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And like you said, I didn't see the end result. You don't see the trees for the forest while you're walking.
No.
You're just suddenly you're there.
Yeah.
And I realized, it's time to shift my parameters and create new goals, set new expectations.
Yep.
And new challenges. And
you were even, I think generous to share that you had kind of experienced this sort of limbo feeling.
I have
over the last few years of
definitely.
Like, why am I kind of feeling a little off balance or not connected or unsure of where I'm going next? Well, because you hadn't.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it until you and I were talking about it the other day. I was like, man, here we built this beautiful house. Things are good. I've just done a series that after that series, another one goes. And sometimes they go for 8 episodes. Sometimes they go for 4 years. Sometimes they go for 1 pilot. But I was like, these are all high class problems. I'm going from, pilot to show. And it's like, but still not feeling that I have, have made that I've achieved that level. And I realized it's because I think what it was is those are all things that I had set out to do years ago.
Right.
And then I achieved those and I'm like, oh, buddy, you got to figure out what's next. And it doesn't always have to be career. It could be, it could, like we said, it could be a financial goal. It could be a relationship goal. Right. It could be a family goal. I have an extraordinary marriage with my wife who I've known for now 20 years. We've been married for 9, been together almost 20 years. And it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
And we work on that consciously, subconsciously, but that is something that I also set out was part of I didn't tell you the other day, was also in my list.
Yeah.
That I knew that I was going to have a really beautiful, nurturing relationship. And that's something that Sandra and I have. And so, okay, got that. You check that off and you're like, but you can't just check it off and say, then it's done. It's ever evolving. You're always working on it.
Yeah. Ideally. So, all right. Well, geez. These are some substantial breakthroughs you were sharing here. And I think it's what I like having conversations with people like you or anybody I have conversations with on this show is that it's easy, I think, to assume that people who have quote unquote made it have it figured out. right?
Right.
I mean, it's a
a
misassumption.
That's right. That is.
And many of the people I've spoken to, recently I did an interview with Kate Somerville, who, has this iconic multinational skincare line, incredibly successful, and she's still working it out too, And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this show, was because I wanted to have a conversation, because it's an ongoing conversation. The conversation's never over.
Right.
And we get to have a dialogue. And if people listen to this and go, oh, wow, Michael Trucco's still working it out? God, I thought he had it all worked out, all figured out. It's not the case. It kind of makes us human.
Well, it's funny. You said have it worked out or figured out or succeeded. I find it funny because, I get these things, I've done enough shows here and there. People always go, "Hey man, did we go to school together?" Or I get that, "Dude, were you in Vegas last weekend?" No, it wasn't me. I get that thing where they know the face.
Yep.
They're like,
"Oh, I know it." And I get it at the grocery store all the time. They just kind of stare at me.
Are you
on my kids'
Washington
soccer
State
team?
No, definitely. Are you sure? Yep, it's me. Pretty sure I've never been there. And so I was at the airport. I don't know what it was, and I'm waiting for a flight, and this woman I could see her from the distance, way off in the distance. She kept getting closer, about every 10 feet. Get a little closer, bend down, bend down, bend down. She goes, "Yeah, it's him," really loud. "Yeah, it's definitely him." And leans back to the people. She goes, "Yeah, it's him," and starts pointing.
Like you're not there.
I'm like, okay, and I'm by myself. And then this guy was sitting opposite me. The chairs in an airport, you face each other. He had a newspaper. His newspaper goes, he rolls it down. He goes, "Are you famous?" I go, "If you have to ask." And he went, and he put the newspaper back up.
Moving on.
Because I was like, that's so when people go, "Are you famous?" It's like, well, if you have to ask.
I know. What have I seen you on?
Yeah, what have I seen? Now I have to give you my resume.
But then it's awkward.
It is awkward.
It's very awkward.
So there's that degree where I was like, okay, people know they've seen me, but I'm also not at the level of an automatic recognition, a name, where people just go, "Oh my God, you know who walked in." It's always like, was that dude that was on Law and Order that raped that girl? Oh yeah, I think that is it, So it's funny. It's a nice feeling. It's when somebody actually goes, "Hey, Disjointed or Battlestar was one of my favorite shows." But the majority of it are kind of what you're saying, but they look at you like, "Yeah,
how do I know you?
Do you? Yeah,
the place,
Starbucks,
with the thing."
No.
Did you make me a latte last week?
Right. So there is, that's one of those things that I kind of laugh to myself when, like, "Oh, have you made it?" I'm like, I'm kind of, but
I'm making it.
Yeah, I'm making an impression, but there's, the mold hasn't been,
completely set.
That's right.
Completely set. Well, dude, I mean, I'm sure we could keep on going, but those are great. I mean, I think it's really great to hear that it's a work in progress.
Yes.
It takes practice. It's never over until, you're 6 feet under.
Right. Exactly. Remove the limitations.
Yeah, exactly. Walk through the fear.
Yes. That's the thing.
And stop listening to your limiting conversations.
Yes.
Because those are going to be the end of us. I mean, that's at the end of the day. We're going to keep thinking thoughts.
Yeah.
No matter what we think, we're going to keep on thinking thoughts. We're going to keep on having feelings. We can't stop that. The question is, what we do have, actually, is the choice as to what thoughts we choose to entertain.
That's right.
That's it. And if you can entertain the thoughts that turn you on, light you up, get you motivated, get you driven, keep you in the game.
It doesn't mean the other ones don't pop up in your head.
Absolutely.
Don't disparage that. That's natural. That's normal. That's going to happen.
That's right.
And acknowledge them and confront them and go, "Hey, and whatever your conversation in your own head, how it goes, those thoughts of doubt and fear come up. But like you said, it's which one you choose to entertain."
That's right. I remember, years ago, I heard a great analogy about those conversations we have, that little voice in our head, right? That are disempowering, that don't keep us motivated, is how am I going to stop that conversation? Well, give up stopping, like you said, give up stopping the conversation, but consider the conversation as being a radio in a room in a house, and you're in that room. Over time, as you continue to practice the not entertaining of that limiting voice, suddenly that radio is not in the room with you. It's in the room adjacent to you. And then it's in the room in the upstairs bedroom. And then it's
in the driveway.
It's far away.
Yeah.
It just gets softer and softer and softer. And it doesn't have the same power over us anymore.
That's right.
Exactly. And those other conversations become more powerful and more inspiring. So anyway, again, this is the thing about this. You and I have been doing this living life for, over 45 years now.
That's right.
And we haven't got it all figured out.
Nope.
We are a work in progress, and being able to share what we've experienced, our experiences on this show was the reason I did it. That was the reason I wanted to do this, was to say, I don't have it all figured out, but some of the stuff I figured out, if someone can take something from that and improve their lives and have value.
This is a perfect example. The fact that you're doing this.
Right.
This is a manifestation of an idea that you had, and you decided to follow it through.
Yeah.
We talked about this the other day. You had no idea how to start.
Nope.
I guess you get a microphone. I guess you get some program on your computer. I mean, how do you do this? You're doing it. And either this is the first, third, 103rd, 3,000th one you've done, you got to start somewhere. So you are a perfect example of your own practice. And this is an example of it. Us sitting there having this conversation right now is an example of your manifestation. I applaud you.
Well, thanks, Trucco.
No problem, Murphy.
I appreciate your taking some time, man, and having a chat with me. We'll have to do it again, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, man. And you can go ahead and subscribe to this podcast. Also visit me at breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for more episodes of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. I'll see you next time. You can go ahead and subscribe to this podcast. Also visit me at breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for more episodes of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. I'll see you next time.